But I've got historian Doris Kearns Goodwin with me right now. I believe I do anyway. And Doris, obviously the next thing we wait for after they leave this room is the formal parade to begin. There have been some protest outside, but inside that room it was all nice. And obviously a gesture and a magnanimous one on Mr. Trump's part, the president, to the woman he defeated, Hillary Clinton. There are many moments, I guess, like those at these type of events. What do you think of all that?
No, I think it was a very heartening moment to see these Republicans and Democrats together, to know they're in Statuary Hall, to have talk about Lincoln and what went before, and to see the graciousness with which he talked about Hillary and Bill Clinton. You know, in some ways he did that on election night as well. There was a real classy graciousness. And I was hoping today that in addition to fighting for the people, and he represented his supporters incredibly well, I think better even than he did on the campaign. He wasn't talking about I, he talked about we as part of a movement. He only used I, really, I think that one time when he said, I will fight for you with every breath. The other tone of that could have been what he did on election eve, where he talked with graciousness about his opponent. And he did it here at this lunch. I wish he had done it in the speech itself, because I wish more people had been able to hear that.
Now, in the speech, a lot of people are seizing on the fact that, I don't know if it's a shock, but he campaigned as a bull in a china shop, as I was saying earlier in this broadcast, and he gave a speech as such, but he put the word out, and the markets, some of them were hiccuping on the protectionist bent. He said, the American worker, you, the displaced, what have you. Obviously, he was speaking to the base that brought him to this moment, but did that worry you?
Well, I think the most important thing that has to be concerning is that when he excoriated the very political class that he's going to need in order to move his programs forward, that's why, again, seeing them at this lunch makes you feel better about the whole thing, and these human relations may be able to develop. But I remember when Eisenhower got into, I don't remember, but I remember hearing about it when he became president, yeah. You know, that he said he was a sad man because he couldn't just give orders anymore the same way a military leader could. CEOs have a better chance of giving orders to people. They can fire people. They can provide bonuses. But he needs that Congress. He needs that political class that he claimed was responsible for what was happening to the problems of America and not dealing with them. So that tone, I think, he's going to have to soften if he's going to get these characters to go along with him.
In the meantime, we're looking at the woman he defeated, Hillary Clinton, the popular vote winner, a lot of her supporters like to point out. But what do you see for her? What does the future look like for her?
You know, it's so impossible to imagine. You know, somebody was saying today, I heard earlier, well, is she over the hurt yet? You never get over that hurt. You know, one of the presidential candidates who lost, someone else asked him, well, how long did it take you to get over it? And he said, tell me, it's not over yet. So it's a huge loss, obviously. And the question is, does she mobilize her energies? I mean, there's talk about her running for something else, or does she go into private life? And I think it's just going to take a while for her to absorb that. You can imagine, you're sitting there today. That's why, again, this is such a great moment, these peaceful transitions of power. We can't take it for granted, you know, that she thought she would have been there. This would have been her moment, and yet she's sitting there because she should be there, and it's right that she be there, as the other presidents are. So that's what America has to remember. This is a great time of renewal and continuity at the same time.
I'm probably getting the words wrong, but I think I got the gist of the remarks right. When Barack Obama had his inaugural luncheon, he hearkened back to that and said, more or less, them were the days when we could talk and have fun together and share some great stories. And whether it was his fault or the other side's fault or a little bit of both, you never quite match that same camaraderie that you get at such luncheons. But do you think that there'll be any spillover here? This was a particularly nasty election. This was a particularly nasty fight. What do you think?
Well, I think it's going to be very important for President Trump to be able to bring those congressmen to the White House, use the White House as a people's house, you know, just like Lyndon Johnson did. They would come for dinner. They'd be there for breakfast. They'd be there for lunch. And somehow I wish the congressmen themselves would spend more time with each other in an informal setting like this. You know, in the old days, they used to play poker together. They weren't running home on the weekends to raise money for their next campaign. They drink together. Maybe that's what we need, them to just sort of have these kind of social things where they see each other as human beings and not as somebody from the other political party.
Yeah, unfortunately, Donald Trump doesn't drink, though. That could be a problem.
No, I know.
Let me ask you,
he can have his cranberry juice.
There you go. Let me ask you, and maybe you could satisfy my curiosity. I think it looks like we'll have two cabinet appointees approved by when the president sits down in the White House for his first formal meeting. Is that more or less what we see typically presidents have going into office? What?
Well, I think it's maybe a little bit less than we've seen, but I don't think it's a huge problem. I mean, I think he knows who they are. You know, the chances are in a Republican majority in the Senate that they will get approved. The bureaucracy's waiting there, whether it's the bureaucracy they want or not. The government still goes on. Yeah. So I think we can't rush everything like this. And, you know, it's not as if the country's going to have it. Well, you can never tell. At least the foreign policy people are there, and that's really important because that's where something could happen that you need an immediate decision on.
Right, you need that right away. They made the allowances for retired General Mattis just 3 years out of serving to be in this post where he could take over the Defense Department.